Live from the CoffeeCon studios, it's Coffee Kevin.
Hi, thank you, Pat. And that time, I hope I was able to not look like a deer in headlights. I've got an incredibly important message today. Well, I know, and then I'm laughing, right? But I'm laughing because I do hear this all the time. These K-cup machines are are ubiquitous in our culture. And they've suffered a lot of slings and arrows, and yet they have incredible reach market-wise, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Even in the homes of a lot of people who are avid coffee drinkers and want to make good coffee with them. Not everyone is someone that doesn't care about the taste of coffee. In fact, I would argue that most of their audience are people that do care about the taste of their coffee because they went to the trouble of buying a coffee maker. And if they don't care about the taste of coffee, there are plenty of places you can get coffee for free where the coffee was brewed a long time ago, indifferently at best. And it's in our culture everywhere. If you really don't care about the taste of coffee, there are plenty of opportunities for you other than buying a home machine. If you buy one, the question, though, that you're apt to ask me when you bump into me is, how the heck do I get a really good cup of coffee? I really do like coffee. How do I do it? And let me tell you my opinion about the K-Cup and my observations after using one. And I tested one very early. I wanted to try them out. I wanted to have always a great cup of coffee. And my initial disappointment was, oh, thank you. Thank you, Michael. I walked out without bringing the K-Cup with me. And this is a permanent K-Cup, meaning it's refillable. Well, that's part of the secret of what I'm going to tell you. And you may already know that, but I've got a little more to the show than that. But there are challenges. One of them is the machine. The machine does it. Most of the machines out there do not get to the right brew temperature, not even close to it. And the challenge of a K-Cup is partly how long it takes for it to warm up. And mostly, and this is true for lots of coffee makers, not just K-Cups. The vast majority of coffee makers, automatic drip makers, K-Cup pod machines of all kinds, is that the temperature doesn't get hot enough fast enough. Temperature is supposed to aim for a target temperature of 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Within 5 degrees of that either way, roughly. I'm going to shorten a few things. I know the spec is just slightly more specific than that, but for the sake of making this simple. And then the time that the coffee is in contact with hot water that's 200 degrees, plus or minus. And the time itself on the K-Cup design is really, really short. And they did it for a good reason. They did it because they wanted to make the coffee faster. And then how did they do that? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But the time and temperature of the machine is engineered into the machines. And the machine is generally going to be 2 minutes or less contact time for the coffee, probably a minute. But the temperature is critical. And that is, no matter how great of coffee you use and how great the K-Cup is, you have to get a machine that brews within that range. And there are very few that I've tested that really do hit it. Meanwhile, the cup itself, the K-Cup, that I'm not holding one of the K-Cups that you can get at the supermarket. most of those K-Cups, environmentally, there was a panic about them. They showed lots of dramatic photographs of landfills and claimed that K-Cups were filling them faster than anything. Perhaps there was an exaggeration in that statement, but a lot of things being put into landfills. But certainly it seemed like it was an unnecessary waste. And the easiest way to solve that is this: the grounds capacity. The grounds capacity for this format is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It can hold the requisite amount of coffee for. There we go. There we can see that K-Cup. Though that's the permanent one. But the problem is, as we look at the industry, what the industry does, and I've gone and bought, a couple of different brands of K-Cups, brought them home, and just taken the coffee, opened them up, and poured the coffee onto a scale, and usually they come up short, well short of what's required for, let's say, a 6-ounce cup of coffee, which should be about 11 grams. The other thing is the freshness. Freshness of K-Cups generally is poor. The industry, I think, generally, if it was to admit this publicly or not, allows itself a couple of years shelf life. Now, in fact, I want to avoid spreading any panic and ever being associated with that. 2 years is okay from a health point of view. It's not. We're not talking about the dangers of like out of date dairy products or something like that. These are products that are pretty much. It's like spice. It's the spice market. The problem with old spices is they lose their taste and their effervescence, and that's true of coffee quite a bit. At least as true in coffee's case, maybe more. But you really do need that window to be shorter than that for ultimate freshness. Now, I will tell you, the industry has been working on this, and there are companies that make pods, and I'm just going to name drop one of them, Illy. Illy makes pods, and Illy has their own pod machine, isn't it? The ESS. I know the. Wow, I was just about to mention the machine, but it doesn't matter. Illy has done a lot of research on packaging coffee, and I would say Illy probably has pods that last longer than anybody's and are probably tested more. I'm just going to throw that out. It's rather unscientific but anecdotal, but I've had a lot of luck with Illy coffees that are packaged, and there's effervescence to them. By effervescence means there's a tendency to foam up a little while they're brewing. And I've got a couple of notes here, and I'm trying to stay on track today. So the freshness is a big issue, though. Obviously, with this permanent thing, you solve that. And non-standard grind fineness is the last thing I'm going to mention is a real problem with the K-Cup machine. And why is that? Well, it doesn't matter to you at all. It does matter, however, to small batch roasters that decide to put out their own K-Cups. They've had some problems because you really do, it is a really fine grind, and it is a very exact grind. And I'm friends with a company called Modern Process, and Modern Process makes a lot of machines. They're probably the experts on grind for K-Cups. And I have asked Dan Ephraim, who owns Modern Process, to come on as a guest, and he is just trying to find time to do that. He's one of those people that's traveling around the world most of the time. But and that's not unusual in the coffee business. But definitely, you want to get your grind perfect for a K-Cup. And so let's talk about the solutions. Now I've addressed all the problems. here are the solutions to getting a perfect K-Cup. Well, first of all, a cat's out of the bag already. The solution number one is get yourself a permanent filter. I know of no, you'll solve a lot of these problems in one fell swoop by doing that. I know of no K-Cup manufacturer that I know of that really puts the requisite amount of grounds that you really need in there. Maybe there are some local roasters that do. They've got other problems, however. They've got the grind problem still, and they've got it's still the same freshness issue. In fact, they may have a bigger freshness issue because they're not apt to have the technology and the know-how of a company like Illy. However, if you get one of these, you've solved a lot of problems because you don't care. You buy fresh ground coffee and you grind it yourself and you put it in here. And I'm going to do that today. So, first of all, let's get some coffee. And you know what? I forgot the coffee. Michael, I hate to ask you this. Can you go upstairs and in the freezer there should be, because I wanted to make sure it was, there's a Allegro coffee.
Is it ground?
No, it's not. It's a Sumatra coffee.
How would you like it ground?
I'm going to grind it right here. Thank you. That wasn't Michael. That was Patricia. So we're actually going to have someone on camera while for this one. I guess you're taking turns today for things I forgot to bring down here. Well, let me do some things I can do. Oh, it says low on the. Can you ask her to get a scale too? Because I'm going to need that. I'm sorry. I did bring a scale, but the scale's got a battery issue. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. Okay. We've got lots of equipment here. It's just a question of which one is. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. And then I'm going to show you how easy this is, and I purposely put this in the freezer because I wanted to demonstrate anybody can do this. You can get coffee when it's on sale and put it in the freezer. This is, I realize that people, not everyone in the world has a coffee roaster available that so they're able to get, there we are. This is what the coffee we're using today. I'm going to use one of my favorite coffees. It's an Allegro coffee. It's Sumatra Lake Toba, and it is a fabulous Sumatra. It has that, there's a certain, and dare I say this because sometimes this can be considered a defect if it's in the wrong amounts, a certain slight earthiness to it that I really like. That is, to me, the signature of a great Sumatra. And I know everyone doesn't look for the same kind of coffee anywhere, but that's my favorite. This is one of my favorite Sumatras, regardless of price, regardless of who roasts it. I really like this coffee. And anyway, I'm a big fan of Indonesian coffees generally. I am going to, let me think, I'll put it in here. I'm not going to use, and I'm going to measure 11 grams. Oh, I just went a little over, so I'm going to pull a few out. Okay. You're going to get a number of secrets on this particular show. So, if you have a K-Cup machine and you want to make it work, and you want to make as good as possible coffee with it, this is a good episode for you. Okay, I've measured 11 grams. Don't need this anymore. Going to pour these in here. Admittedly, and I assume we're plugged in, Michael. Let me see. Yeah, we are. Thank you. Okay, and we are going to grind right into this. And I'm using a grinder which is many times more costly than even the K-Cup machine that I brought today. And I brought a really good K-Cup machine. And you're probably waiting to really talk about that. But I got the Baratza. I'm sure this is supposed to be Sete, right? Sete 270. I'm telling you, Baratza really owns the grinding business in the U.S. So you can, and what's great about this grinder is it does the best espresso grind of any home grinder I've yet used. So we know it can do fine grinds. The K-Cup Ideal Grind isn't that much coarser than an ideal espresso grind. So if you can do an ideal espresso grind, you can for sure do a good K-Cup grind. Many grinders, I don't think, will do a great K-Cup espresso grind, but probably if you have a what I would call a mainstream grinder, even Baratzas, the Encore or something, you probably want to try a notch in from espresso as a starter. Okay, now let's put a preset on this. That's a good one. Sorry about the noise. Takes about 5 seconds of unbearable sound for that. And you really can't see it, but this is really going to... The toughest part of this is filling this. And especially from something that's a little wider than I normally would grind into. And you can see I'm already getting a little bit of, I'm going to lose a few grounds, but it's still going to be a fabulous cup of coffee. All right, and obviously, if you have the right narrow reservoir to grind into, you're going to have less spillage than I am. But I'm losing probably not even a gram. So, and never tamp, never tamp. But you take this. Oh, by the way, let me point out what this is. I'm going to name drop like crazy on this. Ekobrew. Ekobrew is a permanent filter that I've used. It's a patented technology. It's really ideal. It's stainless steel. I mean, there's no, don't worry about the landfill anymore. You're not going to put this in a landfill. Even when you get tired of it, you're going to, or your estate sale, they can't sell it. They'll put it in they can recycle it. I mean, metal is always something that has a market. Okay. Let's put it in here. You put it into a K-Cup. Now, which K-Cup am I recommending? I'll tell you which K-Cup I recommend. I think it's the finest K-Cup machine I've ever used, is the BUNN. BUNN My Cafe. Hands down. It meets the standards. I believe it meets Gold Cup standards. By the way, let's talk about the standards for a second, Gold Cup standards. Challenge of the Gold Cup standard for K-Cups is the Gold Cup standards really apply to batch brewers. For one reason or another, they don't apply to single cup makers. In other words, they're talking about brewing a liter of coffee. When you start with specs like that, well, this isn't going to make a liter of coffee. This is 1 cup. So I don't even know if this would be, if BUNN had been willing to pay the money and get it tested by the official organization now. I don't know that it would even be applicable, because I don't think it is. And it's one of the complaints that I hear. There is wine in the coffee business. I do hear people complaining about the standards, and they can't get certain machines stamped approval. So, okay, but you just put this in here. The BUNN machine gets to the brewing standards. It gets to that much. And then is my water, oh, here it is, thank you. And now this is the one part of this I'm going to have to stand up for or do something, because it is It is the toughest part of it, in my opinion. And what I might do is overfill it a little bit. Okay, let's see if we're there yet. I'm going to have to take my glasses off. I'm at that point. I'm not going to go to max level. I've done that before. This may just slightly overfill it. We're going to try. Okay. And then that should be good. Okay. Thank you. All right. And now I can put my glasses back on so I can see things from a distance. And then I'm going to use the pulse feature. Yeah, you don't have to use the pulse feature, but I just like it. In other words, it gives me kind of a pre-infusion. And I think it gives you just a tad richer cup. Maybe placebo effect, but I respond to those well too. Okay, let's hit the button. Now we've solved a lot of problems with this. Okay, here we go. There's the initial. It gave an initial amount here. Is that going to buying you anything as far as an overhead shot, Mike? You getting anything there? It's not bad. It's not much. Okay, it's too bad. We kind of need an angle shot for next time we show something like this. And it shuts down for a little bit. And it gives you, it gives it that pulse. And I think that it's a form of turbulence. And BUNN kind of wrote the book on turbulence in the coffee industry. And that's the idea that agitation, just like your washing machine uses, agitation, there we go. And that is our cup of coffee. We're letting the water run through, and that is a 6-ounce cup of coffee brewed with 11 grams. And, you know, it takes about a minute. It's maybe a little more, but it's just a little bit thicker grind than espresso. Actually, Michael, I just thought of something. Let's do this. Let's see if this works. I'm going to sweep these over here and see if you can get a close-up of them, if it helps you. And we can spread them out for people. I don't know if this will help or not, but see if you go in on it, what do you get? Is it just going to go in on the piece of tape? Oh, it looks like it's not going to do much. Okay, right there, right there. And then what I'll do is sweep it up here a little more. I realize there's some water there. But you can see, this is really super fine coffee. And very, very, can you focus up a little? That's just out of focus. There we go. It's much finer, significantly finer than drip grind. If you use drip grind or use, Lord help you, if you use coffee from a can, you will not be happy. It doesn't matter if you use 11 grams or not. It will just be a weak, underdeveloped, unextracted cup of coffee. It'll be extracted actually, but well, no, it won't, because you just won't get the kind of measurements that you need. Okay, let's see what this tastes like. Wow, that's a powerful cup of coffee. You wouldn't believe this is a K-Cup. It is actually, in fact, if I were going to do it again, I'd probably back off a gram or two. I might go to 9 grams. Or I might coarsen the grind a little. There are a number of ways to address coffee strength issues. There's not just one. Reducing the turbulence isn't an option. Maybe not using the pulse feature would make a better cup of coffee. Don't shrink from trying different out-of-the-box solutions for your coffee issues. You can make coffee as good as any cafe can. If you just put a little time into it and you're willing to, in this regard, I do advise being a little wasteful. Once in a while, brew a cup of coffee with the idea that I'm not going to drink this whole cup. I'm just going to take a taste of it or two and see if it's what I like. And then I'm going to brew another one right afterwards. With a machine like this, it's not a very expensive expenditure. And that is brew another one and change a variable. Try to change one variable at a time. Don't do what I often do, and it's change two variables, because then you, even if it's better, you don't know which one, both of them, really had the most effect. But try to change one variable. This is a really solid cup of coffee. And let's see, we've addressed what? We've addressed the temperature. This machine reaches 200 degrees. The time. Well, the time is inherent to the way of making coffee. And as long as the time is balanced out by a fine enough grind, could you use a blade grinder to get as fine a grind as this? Probably, but how would you know when you got there? I don't know. You know, I mean, you're welcome to try. I don't think you're going to hurt anything, but you might hurt your taste buds. As far as the cup itself, yeah, we don't have anything that we're tossing into the garbage can. Even the coffee itself can go into the compost. The grounds capacity. The grounds capacity we've addressed. We used 11 grams to make this cup. Believe me, the most jaded connoisseur in the audience is going to say this coffee's plenty strong for them. The freshness. Yeah, this coffee was fresh. This coffee foams up. I brewed this coffee this morning in a batch drip maker, and this coffee had foamed up very nicely in the, I used the Brim coffee brewer. We just had Lisa on last week. It was the Brim coffee brewer that she brought along. So the freshness is there, and a non-standard grind fineness. Yes, we were able to address it by using an external grinder. Again, if you use a Baratza Encore, OXO makes a good grinder. Brim makes a good grinder. Capresso makes a good grinder. There are grinders on the market that, at their probably nearest their finest setting, but you can get this grind on any of those grinders. Will you get it as great? One thing you got to say for the mass merchandisers, Folgers, if they make K-Cups, trust me, Folgers grind is perfect. They've really worked at it. I don't care what you think of their coffee, Maxwell House, any of the big guys that make K-Cups, Hills Brothers, they're using a really good grind. Their business depends on it. They're using giant roller grinders. Their grind is probably better than even this, although I think this one's pretty good. But you can certainly get in the ballpark of what you need. But you do need a fine grind. If you don't, you do need to grind yourself. If you don't grind the coffee yourself, you will not get a fine enough grind. So that we have addressed everything. So I believe a perfect K-Cup, and I think I would challenge anyone in the audience to make a better cup of coffee than this. In fact, this comes very close to what I would get in the BUNN Trifecta. What does the BUNN Trifecta get you that this doesn't get you? The BUNN Trifecta lets you make a bigger batch. You can make 2 cups. You can't make 2 cups in this. You really can only make 1 cup. So that's really it for today. I wanted to talk to you about this. I wanted to just finally get it out there. Yes, you can make a good K-Cup, but that's what it would take to rival the other cups of coffee that I talked to you about in the other shows. I'm Coffee Kevin. It's great to see you. Feel free to comment, and if you're on YouTube, feel free to subscribe to us, and I'll see you soon.